Hello guys, this is Eva and welcome to my channel. So today we are painting Mary from Sinners, and particularly the 90s version of Mary because I just loved it. I thought she looked great. She and Stack. The moment I saw her outfit and Stack's outfit, I was like, ooh, like, they look good. But also as someone who grew up in the 90s, I was like, this is awesome. Like, I just love it, and it's like, I just have to paint this. Like, the moment I saw this, I was like, I gotta do fan art of this. This has to happen. Like, this is the best she looked in the whole movie, in my opinion, because, I mean, that 90s fit just always slaps. So doing this was a bit of a challenge for myself because I'm basically painting the entire thing. I'm doing more than just the portraits, and like, this is what I've always kind of visualized when I went to do fan art of this, and yeah, I have a vision of what I wanted, but then it's like, me trying to do it was a bit like, oof, did I overshoot? Did I do more than I can chew? But, well, I mean, I think it came out the best I could manage, you know? The problem with me sometimes is when I paint, especially when I paint a piece that's going on pretty long, I do start to get a little bit tired. I start to feel like I'm like, am I overworking it? Am I doing too much? And then start to kind of lose confidence in the painting. So it is kind of like, it's like I'm determined to get it to look how I want it to look, but that's something I'm able to do at this stage of me learning or relearning and me getting kind of reacquainted with painting. Sometimes you have to accept just where you are, and you know, I'm not sure if this is 100% what I envisioned, but I couldn't have done this a year ago. I can say that with full confidence. And that was because I did all those portrait paintings and still learning portrait paintings that I'm getting a little bit more comfortable on that front. But with this, you know, there weren't really that many refs. It was just that the one, scene in Sinners. I guess this is kind of a spoiler. If you see this bit, this is kind of a spoiler. So, you know, there's only a few shots of her wearing this outfit, and they're all like super dark. Like, the lighting was really dark, so I was like, okay. So I had to kind of find pictures of like Haley Steinfeld herself and just kind of get a reference of her face that wasn't shrouded in darkness. So, you know, this is me kind of trying to do that. You know, it's kind of hard to make up a whole pose when you need the reference, like, because I could have just kind of freeballed it and just kind of drew what I thought and then just done it from there, but I did want it to look like her. And again, I kind of had a vision of how I wanted this to look, and it did. I don't know, it looked like, I don't know, my mind is always kind of overshooting what I can do sometimes. But really, I just wanted an excuse to do this 90s fit. But yeah, painting from scratch though, like that, again, like I've always said when it comes to my portrait paintings, like, I just like the freedom. I didn't want to be married to a line art, but a line art obviously would have helped here too, as far as making sure the foundation of her body is correct, like the anatomy is correct, and making sure like the face size is correct or the head size is correct in proportion to her body, like all of that stuff. Because I noticed later on, like, her head was a little bit big, so I had to like go back and like shrink it down, and then there's all that stuff you have to end up doing when you do it this way. But it's much easier to do it, at least without a line art kind of getting in the way. You know, with that, I would have had to adjust the line art and then go back and adjust the painting, blah blah blah. Like here, when I do these paintings, I'm getting more in the habit of like flattening layers, which is not something I usually do. I usually like having like a million layers, or like every color in its own layer, especially when it comes to flat colors. I love having like everything, like the hair being one layer, the skin being one layer, the clothes being one layer, like the top, the jeans, all the details being one. And it's like, with painting, I don't have to worry about that because it's all gonna get painted over. Like, I have to kind of tell myself that even when I'm doing this, but it allows me to kind of fix those mistakes a lot faster. Like, if I need to like shrink down her head a little bit, I can just flatten the layer, and then do it. It's like, it's just, I don't have to worry about making sure every layer is adjusted with it. I can just find the layer and then paint over the, you know, the little like cracks from the thing I moved and just move on. So it's a lot faster this way. Because I'm a hoarder by nature, I still keep the older layers anyways. Like I will like bunch them all in one layer, and then I'll duplicate it, and then I'll just flatten it, and I'll still keep the other one. Because that can also work as a kind of, as a layer beneath it, so when I do move things around, it keeps you from seeing the background. There's not like a weird crack in the image. You can still use the background as a kind of additional foundation for the painting. So I like doing it that way too. So yeah, here, you know, just, again, this took a lot of, you know, I'm looking at a reference. There's really, again, the references for her here are like so dark. There aren't really a lot of clear references. So I'm kind of going by my own knowledge, my anatomy knowledge, and just my own eyes, like what makes sense, like what is working here. And, you know, just going with just what works. So a lot of this is kind of made up, but I'm also using a reference too, so it's a bit of both. But yeah, this was a challenge because it's just like, you know, I want this to be 100% painted. So that was a challenge for myself, but I mean, I think, again, practice. Like, I want to do more of these so that way I can get more comfortable. I feel like this is one of my earlier attempts at trying this, so there's still room to grow, room to improve. So I know it won't be perfect, but I know it's at least it's a starting point. You know, I gotta start somewhere to kind of get better at this. So I like struggle with these eyes. Like, I was looking at the rough of Haley Steinfeld's eyes, and I'm just like, you know, like, I know, like, in relation to the whole picture, they look really weird right now, but like, I was just trying to get the eye shape and the eye values correct, because I don't know, I was just really struggling with that. And then and I think what made it hard is, like, usually I didn't do it here, but usually I would like to have the highlights established first, but I didn't really put enough highlights here, so everything just felt flat. And it just kind of took me out, and it just made me feel like, yo, is this anywhere close to done? Like, I know it's not anywhere near done now, but it's like, I think it just felt like the whole process felt so much slower because I didn't really kind of rough in the highlights and darker values like soon enough. But especially the highlights can really help to kind of like tie it all together, and that's something I didn't do here, at least at this stage. So here's me kind of adjusting the eye shape and trying to fix everything because I'm like, this all looks so off. So, but I can do it. You know, there's no line art to kind of distract me, so now I can just, again, go by my own eyes. What looks right? What looks right compared to the body? What looks right compared to just the features on her face? Like, just, you know, that's where some kind of experience comes in. So some things I drew out, like the hand, obviously, because like, I'm not about to just guesstimate that. Hands are some of the hardest things to paint and draw, so I gotta do some line art for that one. I'm definitely not there where I can just paint it just off jump. So I realized I didn't have, like, I painted over the face temperatures that I established initially, so I'm subtly bringing those back a little bit and to bring more life back to this, because again, I'm not sure where this is going, and I'm not sure how much longer this will take. Like, I mean, I know we're not close to done yet, but it still is just like, it just feels so much slower. I'm just like, you know, where are we in the process right now? Because I'm getting to the point now where I'm starting to get a little bit tired of working on this piece, and I'm ready to kind of move on. And that's always been my problem. Like, I tend to get a little bit impatient, and it's like, but, you know, I have to get over that impatience, because that's the thing with paintings, they take a long time to do. And, you know, to get the good results, you have to gotta kind of suck it up. Hello, editor Eva here. So, I deeply apologize. So the rest of this video got corrupted. I'm using OBS to record, and for some reason OBS decided to freeze up my remaining portion of this video where I actually finished the piece. So what you're seeing now is all that remains of the piece. It's just an hour of frozen frames with no movement of me actually doing anything. So I'm very sorry about that. In the meantime, to try to mitigate this, I went ahead and just started another quick piece. The recording you're about to hear after this was actually recorded before I finished the art piece, which maybe was a mistake now. But in that portion, I was talking about DPI and resolution of the image, which you'll understand what I mean when you listen to the recording. And the artwork you're seeing is going to be at 450 DPI. So this is me testing out this kind of higher resolution that in my recording you're about to hear, I talk about how I never did this before and I want to test it out later. But now we're gonna push this forward now because I have nothing else to show you. So this is me keeping the content related and, you know, showing you guys how I actually will paint in 450 resolution. We're still gonna paint Mary, it's just not gonna be the same piece. And once again, I apologize. With that, let's get back to the video. So, definitely a challenge, but, you know, you gotta do it to yourself. You gotta challenge yourself as an artist to get better. And, you know, for me, I look at so much art every day. Like other artists, just people who are just putting out just wonderful work, and that always motivates me. It's like, if they can do it, then so can I. Like, but then it's just fun. I love looking at art. I can look at art for hours, and it's just so much fun because it literally does motivate me. It's just like, I want to do that. Like, I want to do a piece like that, you know, like, or can I do that? It's just, I love the challenge. That's one of the good things when you know, I went to art school, and that was the best thing about art school is that environment, that kind of friendly competition when you're with other artists and you're trying to like one up one another. But it literally does help you get better though. It like motivates you to like want to draw 24/7 to like be good. To be that person in the class that's like, you know, gets the teacher's praise, like, oh, you know, like, I don't know, it's like a dopamine hit a little bit. It's like when you get that praise for the work you put in, there's nothing like it, especially when it comes to art, that you are kind of fine-tuning and bettering for yourself. That's just what's so special about art. There's nothing like art. Like, art is just so much fun. So, the more I work on this piece, the more I'm starting to realize that I may be working at too low a resolution, because I'm not really getting the details that I wanted from the piece. Like again, I had a vision for this piece and it's not really matching it, and I feel like I'm struggling to get it to match because it's just, frankly, it's just not a high enough resolution. And, you know, I usually put my art pieces at, you know, I usually size it at 13x19 in case I want to make it a print. And I always size it, or I set the resolution at 300 DPI. And that's the minimum for if you wanted to print something. But that's also seen as pretty high quality. The problem is when you're doing details, and that's what I'm learning with this piece, especially now that I'm getting back to painting portraits. If I wanted to paint a face and it's not taking up the majority of the canvas, I don't have that many pixels to work with. It's just, I'm limited on what I can do. And, unless I wanted to work with a much smaller brush, which I could do that, but I also don't really want to. Back when I was younger, I actually used to work in, 150 DPI resolution, which is actually insane. I don't know why I was doing that. I just wasn't really educated on resolutions back then, but I used to work in that resolution, and I used to paint with the 3 brush, the size 3 brush, which of course was easier because I was working at such a low resolution. But the problem obviously there is I couldn't really print a lot of it, and the pieces were also much smaller. I wasn't working at 13 by 19 back then. I was just kind of working at whatever size I wanted to. I wasn't thinking about print or anything like that back then. But in order for any details to appear in this piece now, I would have to make the brush super small. And again, that would make the time I'm taking on this piece probably triple. And honestly, I'm not interested in doing that. I think the days of me kind of taking more than a certain amount of hours on a piece, if I take too long, then I start to get bored. That's the problem. I get bored, and then I'm like, I want to move on now. I don't want to just work on this piece forever, because there's so many other pieces that, are waiting to get done. And, I don't, if a piece can't be saved, then it can't be saved. And I have to just kind of let it go or try again later. And that's just kind of where I'm at with this one. I'm kind of like, I did my best. I learned that, hey, if I want to paint a face while also painting some of the body, the resolution must be higher. And the issue with making the resolution higher, though, is that when you have a potato for a computer, that can start taking up a lot of memory. It can start lagging the computer if your computer can't really support that. That's the issue with working in that way. And that's always kind of been my issue. I've never really had a super powerful computer, at least not one that I pay for myself. Maybe for work I might have a computer that's strong, but it's I can't, I obviously can't do this kind of work at work. So it's when it comes to my personal computer, it's always, kind of the bare minimum of what I can afford. Working at 600 DPI for every piece, that's just, I'm not able to do that each time. It's just, I'm not able to do that. And by the way, if you don't know what DPI is dots per inch, which is basically the measure of the resolution for a printed image. So basically, it's how many pixels are in the image. So that's why you have 300 and above for images you want to print, because when you print that, you're not going to see the pixels. Or you have the web resolution, which is 72 DPI, which is small enough for the internet. Because the internet, you don't need to print anything on there. And also, you're not going to see the pixels on the internet, because the internet as a whole is a small resolution. So, higher DPI obviously means, you can put more details in a piece while not having to, shrink your brush down to the 3 brush. I mean, unless you wanted to. But I can work at the same size brush I'm working at now, which is I think it's maybe 9, I don't even, it really varies depending on what I'm doing. But no matter how big my brush is, you will still get the details. You'll still get the details, and that's really what any artist wants from their piece, for you to see the details. But of course, when you raise the size, you raise the DPI, you raise the resolution, it also causes a larger file size, which again ties back to, can your computer handle it? Or do you have the space for it? In fact, I would actually, if you are working like that, or if you're just working on art in general, I actually would recommend you do invest in an external hard drive. In fact, that's what I'm working in now. A lot of this is going onto an external hard drive because, your computer doesn't have that much space, and you don't want to spend the money to like get like a terabyte of space or whatever. Like, just buy an external hard drive. Those, I mean, depending on how much you get, and the thing is, like, when it comes to art, you don't need like a crazy huge you don't need a crazy huge like amount of terabytes. You can probably get like 2 terabytes of space, and that should be more than enough. Well, you know, unless you're working at like 600 DPI for each image. I feel like those might get a little bit bigger, but I think even if you worked in that though, I feel like you shouldn't really get close to filling up 2 terabytes unless you're just doing like a piece a day for like every day straight or something. So I will suggest that if you're thinking about it, like definitely, at least that will resolve the space issue. But then there's still the RAM issue, and a lot of computers, you know, especially when you're working like Photoshop or any art program, like I think the minimum really is like 16 gigabytes of RAM. Like you really need something like on that level to not have it lag 24/7. Then of course, the more you use your computer, eventually it will lag anyways. So it's just, that's why it's important to kind of always update your computer, which, you know, you have to be able to afford doing that, which, you know, quite frankly, I'm not. So I just work with the same old computer I have and just try to keep it working. But yeah, that's all that to say. I see it, that's what the issue is with this. I see that's why I'm like struggling to really get this to look the way I want it to look, is because it's too small. Like that's the gist of it. Now, if I were doing like a portrait where the face is taking up the majority of the canvas, like I said, then I would be able to fit a lot more details there. And I feel like it is easier to paint a face when it's like the only thing on the canvas. But yeah, when I'm painting the face and a half body, not even a full body, just a half body, or even as a portion of the body, if the face is lower than even like half of the canvas size, then yeah, that's where you're not going to get the same amount of detail. So that's what I'm learning with this piece, actually. And this will help me realize for any other piece I want to do, especially if I do want to do like a more painterly style with some more of the body showing, I'd have to raise the resolution to something, you know. I mean, you can go 600 is probably the highest you need to go, and you can go anywhere between that. Like I might go to like 400 or something like that, or 450. I don't know. It depends on what I think will work. But either way, you know, the more detailed your piece is, the better it looks. Let's just be honest. The better it'll look not only on the internet, but it'll look really good just as a print as well. I look at artists all the time, and I'm like, I see other artists sometimes, and I'm just like, how did they get the art to look so clear? Like when they post even like a time lapse, I'm like, this time lapse is like 4K. Like, how did they do this? And now of course, you know, they might be working in Procreate or Clip Paint Studio, which are programs mostly geared toward art. I'm working in Photoshop, so I have to use, you know, Photoshop doesn't have a built-in like time lapse program, so I have to use OBS to basically record all of this. Whereas something like Procreate, you can record right in there. In fact, it does a whole thing. You can just check and it will just record as you're doing the art, no matter when you're doing it. You know, if you were to start a piece and then take like a month away and come back, it will resume recording. That's how that works, which is actually pretty awesome. I think Clip Paint Studio works in a similar way, but Photoshop, you have to actually hit record on a third-party program in order to get that. So I could make that 4K if I wanted to, but I mean, again, computer and RAM and all that issues. So yeah, all that rambling to say that I'm not really satisfied with this piece, but I'm posting it anyways because, you know, I mean, you know, it's still somewhat presentable, and also, you know, I can talk about this sort of stuff here and share that with you guys. But yeah, just something I'm realizing, something I'm gonna like take a note of in the future. So when I want to do anything more detailed with, you know, a painterly style and, you know, painting more of the body and the face, yeah, raise the resolution, just bite the bullet there. But anyways, you know, even with all that said, you know, I mean, the piece didn't come out terrible. It's just not really to the standards I visualized, but it's still something, and I wanted to share it with you guys. So yeah, I hope you guys like it at the very least, and I mean, this was a learning experience. Like every piece I do these days is me learning and trying to improve and kind of get back to, a level that I feel I should be at. I worked in Photoshop for so long that it's just, you know, I'm still learning. And then, art blocks get in the way, and it's like you just take a break from doing art, and then the things you used to learn, you kind of are fuzzy on, and it doesn't come as clear to you anymore. Like, that's why it's so important to practice and do this every day. And that's what I've been trying to do recently, trying to kind of get back at doing daily work, because it just keeps that muscle strong, and there's nothing more important than that. I mean, art is a skill. You have to just keep practicing, keep it strong, and then you start to memorize things, and things will just come more intuitively to you. And, the same thing will apply to this, or even just working in these digital programs. You'll start to know, okay, this is what I should do here and what I should do there. Yeah, I mean, it's very powerful, but you have to work for it. You have to be consistent, and you have to not give up. Even when you're frustrated, like I'm kind of frustrated that this piece isn't coming out the way I wanted it to, I'm still like, this is a learning experience though. So now for the next piece, I know what not to do. Simple as that. Because it doesn't just stop at this piece. If we're working every day, there's more pieces that can get done. There's more pieces that can be improved, and that, can be, potentially masterpieces. Who knows? Anyways, I'm going to end it here, but thank you guys for listening to this. And again, if you like this video, feel free to like. And if you like a lot of my videos, or if you like the videos I have so far, feel free to subscribe and follow more. And, I'm going to upload more videos. I'm doing this weekly. So, yeah, I would love to have you along the ride. And you can hopefully learn from any advice I give, and watch me improve my art, and take whatever I'm doing and apply it to your art. Anyways, that's all I got for now. Talk later, and enjoy the rest of your day. Peace.